Let's explore how predictability reduces chaos and builds trust. Predictability creates a sense of safety. And that's really what this quality is all about. It's all about helping the child to feel safe, and that predictability provides this sense of safety through consistent responses and consistent routines. Predictability basically means that children can anticipate how you are going to respond in similar situations. It's not that you have allowed them to do something one time and then you scream at them for doing the same thing another time. And I see this sometimes in parents who will have a child who tells a joke and they laugh at the joke, and then the child tells the joke again and they might giggle at the joke, and then the child tells the joke again and they kind of smile okay at the joke, and then the child tells the joke again, and then they yell at the child for telling the joke, and they tell the child that they've been annoying and why do they keep telling the same joke. That predictability is something that a child is seeking. And so in their retelling of the joke, they're really seeing, are you going to respond the same? And it's not about never telling the child, hey, maybe come up with a different joke. It's not about that, but it is about not flying off the handle at something that you have allowed to happen several times. Another thing that will happen is kids will use cuss words and adults will giggle because it can be funny when a young child uses a cuss word. And so they'll giggle and they'll laugh, and then the child uses the cuss word again and the parent kind of rolls their eyes, and then the child cusses again and the parent yells at them for having used that language. That is not being a predictable adult. And that predictability is really something that's so important because it helps them feel secure. It helps them know that there's a steady rhythm to how things are handled. If a child doesn't know what to expect, that's one of the number one things that can cause mental health difficulties, especially in young children. There's different types of what's called attachment. And the attachment that you seek with a child, especially a child who is your child, is what's called secure attachment. Secure attachment means that child knows that you're going to be there, knows that you're going to provide a safe environment for them. Well, not knowing how you're going to respond doesn't allow that secure attachment to be formed, because the child is always wondering if they're going to be safe or if they're not going to be safe, or if they're going to be cared for, if they're not going to be cared for. This predictability of having consistency in your responses and in your routines helps them feel safe, and that safety builds that secure attachment. It builds that feeling where they know things are fine even if you are apart from each other. It doesn't mean that you have to be rigid or completely inflexible. It's not that plans never change. It's not that there is never a time to break a bedtime rule or whatever it might be. It's just about being predictable. It's about having some consistency to who you are, how you're going to respond, and how things are going to go when the child is around you. One of the ways that I see this get thrown off often is actually by adults who are wanting to help children. But what can happen is that through wanting to help, adults will constantly change their strategies to try to adapt to anything that the child may be doing. As a matter of fact, I recently had a mom who I was having a phone call with, and she is consistently telling me about all of the different parenting articles that she is reading and all of the different parenting books that she is reading. But what she'll tell me is, oh, well, I read in this book that I'm supposed to do this, so I started doing that. And then we'll talk again and she'll say, well, I read in this book that I'm supposed to do this, so I started doing that. Oh, and I read in this book that I'm supposed to do this, so I actually stopped doing that thing and I started doing this thing. And she constantly is wanting to do the best for her child, but she's always changing the target. She's always changing her method, and she's always changing her strategies. The last time I spoke to her on the phone, which was before my vacation, but the last time I spoke to her, I actually told her, I am challenging you for the next month to stop reading things to try to be a better mom. Stop trying to be better and just start trying to be more consistent. Start trying to be more predictable. That predictability, that consistency will actually build more safety, build more trust, build more secure attachment, and build more safety and consistency within the child because the environment around the child is more consistent. Those frequent changes in approach can create chaos for kids. I had a meeting with some school staff before I went on vacation, and we were developing an IEP, which is an individualized education plan for a child. And through that conversation, I said, now, I think that we need to implement this IEP for 3 months and not change the plan for 3 months before we decide what is working and what is not working. And the teachers had a backlash at me. They became very frustrated with me and said, well, what do we do if the strategy isn't working? And I said, well, it's probably not going to. The first several times you try the strategy, you have to be consistent with the strategy, because it's not so much about the strategy as it is about the predictability of the strategy that will make a difference for the child. That is what this predictability is all about. It's not about having a perfect strategy, but it is about having a consistent strategy. Maybe you are the one who's been reading all of the parenting articles, all of the parenting books, watching all of the parenting YouTube, checking all of the parenting social media. Maybe you've joined in all of the parenting Facebook groups and you are constantly updating your parenting strategy. I'd like to encourage you to just find something that works and that is appropriate for your child and that doesn't use physical discipline and isn't abusive to a child. And if you will implement those things consistently over time, that is where the change will happen. That's what the predictability is really all about. Practically, this means sticking to a consistent plan or strategy for an extended period of time before making changes. In my therapy practice, for instance, I don't change goals with a child more than once every 3 months. For 3 months, we work on one goal. 3 months, one goal. And the reason for that is because if this week it's all about being respectful, and next week it's all about finishing your homework, and then the next week it's all about cleaning the room and all those things, and it's all just this moving target, the child isn't able to build up that consistency that will make a difference for them. As a parent, as a trusted adult in a child's life, are you predictable? Does a child know what to expect when you're around? Not that you're boring and dull and everything is always exactly the same, but do they know what to expect with you? When kids step into my office, I can say I offer a predictable environment. That does not mean that things are the same every single time they come into my office. As a matter of fact, they get to choose what we do. Some kids choose to do the same thing every single time, but other kids choose to do different things every time they come in my office. But my presentation and my response to them is as predictable as I can make it. And as a matter of fact, if I'm unpredictable, if for some reason maybe I get stressed because a child is refusing to leave my office and I have another client who's waiting in the lobby, and finally I just have to limit their play even more, and maybe whatever happens, I will actually apologize to the child for not being predictable, for not being consistent. I'll say, I am so sorry. I know usually I let you keep playing with the Play-Doh, and this time it was me, not you. I am so sorry for that. Can you do that for the children in your life? Can you be predictable? Can you be someone that when they are with you, they know what to expect? That is what it means to be a predictable adult. That predictability means sticking to a consistent approach to reduce that chaos and build trust? How do you create predictability for the kids in your life? Let me know in the comments.